And so it's with a great delight that I introduce to you an alumnus of the College of Forestry and Conservation who received his wildlife biology degree here in 1947, and then went on from there to become the leader that helped Howard Zahniser and others pass the Wilderness Bill of 1964 and became the executive director of the Wilderness Society for nearly 20 years. It's with a great privilege and honor that I welcome to the podium now Dr. Stewart Brandborg.
Dean Birchfield, graduates, faculty, parents, grandparents, friends, what a great day this is, and what an honor it is for me to be here to celebrate your grand achievement. For me, this is a special privilege. I embrace it as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to look back on a lifetime, to reflect on some of the experiences that I've had that may be of some help to you in your lives by bringing you personal fulfillment within the realization that because you are here to give what you will, the world's a better place. It is my hope that these thoughts will deepen your appreciation of what you personally can help to bring about within our system of democratic government. To bring our nation through some troubled times, periods of seemingly unequal social and political unrest. And above all, to offer you some hope and to instill in you some confidence that our democratic system can be made to work in serving the American people, our public interest, and our nation. That in government, national, state, and local, as well as in the private sector, we have concerned and dedicated people who care as much about the important things in this life as we do. This is a big order. It reminds me of the little girl that was uptight in going to the fiddle recital. Came to her old father and said, "Dad, I'm scared as I can be. This thing makes awful noise, and I get up tomorrow in front of that crowd at the recital. I just don't know what to do." He said, "Kid, just listen to this. You get the first bars down, and then you go to the end and you work hard on that, and then you get up in front of that crowd and you saw away, and they'll forget about what happens in the middle." Well, maybe that's good application for what you're going to go through with me today. I'm here because of a family that loved nature, that took me into the backcountry, horseback, that above all appreciated the good things in people from all walks. They loved people, they loved the land, and they gave me their very best. So we all know how important those ties are. Some of us don't have the great advantages that I did. I arrived with exposure to nature as a wildlife student and gained my professional background from this university. It has served me well. So much I got from the years here, including a wonderful woman that through 61 tough years has stuck with me, given me inspiration, encouragement, help when I needed it. We've had a great time. And with that, a family of 5 irresponsible children that I'm very proud of. And I hope you will mix it up with them because they'll take you off into space. From here I went to the field as a wildlife biologist, serving over 12 years in Idaho and Montana and some of our fine wilderness areas, years with the Forest Service range and timber surveys, backcountry lookouts, and then I got into the wildlife agencies of Idaho and Montana, where I studied mountain goats, elk, and deer. I had one fine time. And it was a matter of some trauma and cultural shock when the Wildlife Federation decided they wanted a wildlifer who knew public lands and who could work with people. Well, I wasn't going to fulfill all of that, but I came through. I got a job in the National Wildlife Federation in Washington that took me into the halls of Congress with these crusty old characters who were writing conservation legislation. And it was there that I got exposure to the realities, the conservation legislation that was going through Congress, where I was given the job of reporting day to day what is happening, writing notices to the American public. Here's air, water, wildlife, all of the soil, all of these resources. Here's what's happening in the Congress. And it was in this period that I went through transition to reality. I joined the advocacy for a national wilderness preservation system, a wilderness bill that was introduced by a man of great vision, wrote this legislation at his dining room table. Howard Zahniser said, let's save what we have, the 50-60 million acres in the Wildlife Refuge National Park and National Forest systems. Let's put those in a system under a policy which says, in effect, they will forever be preserved for the American people. This was my first exposure to one big fight. The commodity interests, oil, gas, lumber, water, mining, they came after us. No policy, never. This is not what we want to do with the lands, and that was an understandable position. They could make a living. They could see profits in what they wanted to do with this 2% of the public ownership. They threw the book at us. All the politicians that carried their message, a bipartisan group of people, Democratic zealot Hubert Humphrey, a few of the grandfathers and fathers here will remember him. Very conservative Republican John Saylor in the House were sponsors. There were a group of people, both Democrats and Republicans, that came in behind the legislation. But the opponents said, let's take them forever into the field. So it was an 8-year-long struggle. They took us to Washington, and people, all walks of life, nature lovers, bird watchers, scientists, ranchers, a grand reflection of American sentiment who spoke for the wilderness, and then of course those commodity groups that didn't want it to happen. Well, it was a real fight. We went to the people. We were forced to go out when they had a hearing in Reno, Nevada or McCall, Idaho to work with people. And there we found that good people would rise up. They would marshal their forces, but at every hearing over a period of these 8 years, 17 hearings, we were able to prevail. What that taught me was any time you enter the arena to do something in the public interest that interferes with the money-making enterprises of individuals, corporations, roll up your sleeve and prepare to do battle. The price of a crusty old chairman of a House committee, Wayne Aspinall from Colorado. Finally, John Kennedy said, "Wayne, we got to have this bill." Wayne said, "Okay, we'll just put in 9 million acres that the National Forests have dedicated, but the rest of the 50 million, 60 million will have to come in through separate involvement of people. Every community where there's wilderness, they'll have to have a hearing. That'll be advanced through the processes of government to the Congress. We'll go through the same thing." Well, this again took us to what we learned in the fight to get the bill, going out to the people. Only this time we had to go to 40 different states, and it was this experience that showed us that the power of the people in this country, once they have the facts, once they build on sound scientific information, once they see the public interest as opposed to the commodity interest, they will join in and give you support. So after 8 years, LBJ signed it into law. A member of the Interior Committee told me at that point that more mail had been received about the wilderness law, the bill, in this long fight than any effort in the history of the United States Congress. This was the warm-up. May I have a little water? I'm warming up too. This was the introduction to real life for me. In the 60s and 70s, we were on a roll. The environmental movement had come into age. We saw the passage of the National Environmental Policy Act that you graduates again remember and know a lot about. Clean air, clean water legislation, National Forest Management Act, Wild and Scenic Rivers Act that was written, prescribed by the Craigheads, the Endangered Species Act, the Multiple Use Act. In the same period, we got some experience when the powerful interests of this country said, let's take advantage of what we have in our national forests and our public lands. Let's go in and graze those. Let's go in and harvest the timber the way we want to do it to make money. So they made moves in the Congress to take the right, the privilege, the laws of the Forest Service, strip them, and get timber. This was in 1970, a National Timber Supply Act. Once again, by people in Washington, the group that represented the public interest, reaching out to the people, a tough fight in the 435-member House of Representatives, but getting people at the grassroots to be involved, letting them know how their legislator was doing, what he was doing, if he was strong in saying this should not happen to the public estate, the lands the people own and love. They commended him. They got communications. If the poor man or woman was drifting along with industry, he or she felt the heat of public opinion. I like to call it the hot oil of public opinion. Informed people pouring it down the backs of legislators, pouring it down the backs of we bureaucrats, pouring it down the backs of the city council, the county commissioners, particularly our state legislators, who continue to be so miserly when it comes to supporting our schools and our higher education system. When are we going to go back home and put the hot oil of public opinion on those men and women when they continually year after year default in meeting the big commitment we have to public education, and the reason that you are here, and that the reason you grandparents, you parents, all of you have put so much into this great accomplishment of graduating today. One of those moves of the corporate oil company companies, a consortium. Let's build a pipeline from the North Slope of Alaska down to Valdez. Interior Department, with big pressure, said, let's get this done. We'll do it with a 32 environmental impact statement. These people know all about those documents that are so essential to protection of our lands and waters. Wilderness Society, for whom I worked, sued. And at that point, old friends in the Congress said, Brandborg, you're going to get it in the neck. You're taking on world government. Well, within world government, top levels of interior, I had friends, and remember this, people in our agencies carry a great commitment to the same things we do. And they're fighting, the good ones, they're standing up for high principle. In this instance, the solicitor said, sue us. And indeed I did. I couldn't get anybody to go with me in the other organizations. A little later, Dave Brower came along, and he didn't have any money in the environment. Anyway, we did. We made him go back to the drawing board for 3 years. They finally beat us in Congress, and that takes me to the great influence of money. You know, the line, follow the money. It's as true right now as ever. They worked the Congress. They hired the big ads. They had the television promotions. They poured it on. Final analysis, Senate, we had a tie. Our sad, disgraced vice president broke it in favor of the companies, so we were overridden. Well, we got many safeguards in that environmental statement that made a difference, but we foresaw, as we have experienced, what happened with the oil spill at Valdez, and we witnessed the same dimensions of that tragedy in the Gulf today. This may be a turning point to awaken Americans to what we must recognize as the lesson of history. This is a fight, constant and continuing, against those who profit, understandably, from their point of view, from the exploitation of clean air, clean water, their national forests, their public lands, the things that we see all around us as we enjoy this lovely environment. Public health, we've seen the sadness of a weakened national health program because pharmaceutical and insurance people came together. We will, of course, recover from that ultimately. We see it in the indiscriminate use of pesticides and herbicides that endanger our health, and we are in a pattern of letting that be supported by state institutions, our agricultural educational teams. The immensity of the media attacks today, the saturation with the line that global climate change is a product of a few zealous academics and these extremist environmentalists. Well, the extremist environmentalists are you all. Anybody that believes in taking care of his lovely place to live, that enjoys a trout or an elk or blue skies and birds. We are the extremists, and we must be prepared to meet these challenges. The current campaign of the fossil fuel people, oil, gas, coal, to tell us that they're going to go ahead. The sadness of our governor and our state land board 2 weeks ago signing off on leases to turn the eastern part of Montana, some of the most beautiful land we've got, upside down for coal, when we don't know what to do with the waste products that contribute to this tragic global climate challenge. Well, I've mentioned the tragedy of the Gulf. I don't need to say more. You're watching that unfold. So it's a continuing battle. Our resources, our health, our way of life, and in a lot of ways the survival of humanity. We are up against it. We either take action or we forfeit. Well, I have worked with people because of necessity, didn't always know quite what I was doing, but working to empower people at the local level, to show them how to come together, decide what is good for their communities, their state, their nation, develop working circles, and building on them. And that is the important role of you in the class, because you come out armed with professional competence. You come out with what each of you offers that's special and unique, and that's what makes strength for our movements. Putting people into circles, professionals, and then other great one, the family, the good friends, the exciting. When people get involved in a fight and they come through and they say, you know, the governor was headed right over the cliff. He was wrong. But because we got together and we built a steamroller of public opinion, again, this hot oil going back down the back of the politician, because we are here, this day is to be celebrated. He decided to take our lead, to follow what we wanted, and do what was right for the people of our country. These strong voices of people are vital. We have them. We've seen the demonstrations. The former dean of the College of Forestry, Arnold Boley, he stood up at a time of real pressure on the issue of overcutting and misuse of our forests. Dean Brown, in bringing students from around the world, his hard line instructions to people who take care of wilderness within our agencies. Steve Running, who's at the spear point of our fight on global warming. These are all the folks that we look to, but then we look to the folks in our community. So building, as we go out, building those circles, two-dimensional, one the professional, the people that have got inspiration, are dedicated. The other is just the good friends you have, the family, the neighbors, the people who have the light in their eyes. They developed because they got into the fray. They fought for what they thought was right. They win, they lose. There's a joy and exuberance and a pleasure in life in those circles, and those are the circles that carry you through, because sometimes you're going to get some heat. Sometimes they're going to work to see you're terminated. I say too many times you really haven't fulfilled life until you've been canned a couple of times. Be prepared for that, but be prepared with your endless pressure. And recognize that each of us has got something special to offer. And this is true with people. You get in circles and you get the synergy, the spirit, and the drive to make good things happen. We're a nation of survivors. Your parents and grandparents can testify to that fact. They've come through wars and depressions. You're here because of their perseverance. They're tough. So are we. These are tough times. These are times of real challenge. These are times when we don't know how and when we'll work, but let it roll out and proceed in good faith. You have what it takes with this background and all that this country offers to have one fine time. Move forward. It's important to recognize we make mistakes, we build on them, and there's one very important thing that we continue to move forward, find pleasure and fun in the good work that we do, and build on the great observation of Teddy Roosevelt. The greatest sport the world affords is the battle for the public interest. It's in a real sense that our country is in your hands. And I have confidence that you will serve it with personal fulfillment and enjoyment. Congratulations, graduates. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.